my friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here for a little discussion video all about your TBR and intimidating TBRs. I actually saw, this is more of like a response video than a discussion, well, it's a discussion video, but it's kind of a response video. And it's to a video that Christy from Christy's Reviews did back in early September. I'm a little behind on my booktube watching, so I only just saw it the other day. And she does a whole discussion about intimidating TBRs. And I will leave a link to that video in the description box below if you guys are interested to go ahead and check that out. She makes a lot of really good points in that video, and I really enjoyed it. So I made a few points. I wrote them down here just so I know what I want to talk about. So essentially what her video was about was talking about, you know, a lot of people have been talking in the last few years on BookTube about, oh my gosh, my TBR is huge. You know, they want to get their TBR down to 0 books, or they want to, you know, get it down to 20 books, or whatever that goal happens to be. And, you know, that she is perfectly okay having this massive TBR. And I absolutely 100% agree with that. Full disclosure, my current TBR has well over 2,000 books on it. When I say TBR, I mean my want to read list on Goodreads. So it's got over 2,000 books on it. Will I ever read all of them? I'd love to. But there are constantly more books coming out that are constantly going to get added to that list. So that list is forever going to grow. And, you know, it's a number on a website. You know, it is what it is. Now, my physical books, that's really it, guys. And these are more like the stuff I keep because I love them. And I actually have to clean this out and purge it a bit. The rest of the books that I own are over here. You guys can't see it. They're over here. And they are my Harlequin books. And those ones, you know, I've got about probably over 200 on that shelf as well. But my want to read shelf on Goodreads consists, 80% of it, of the books I own, are actually ebooks. So they're all on here. Every single one of them. You know, probably close to 2,000 books I've got sitting on this device. Not on it. I don't download the books every time. Excuse me. I download them when I go to read them, just so I don't take up a lot of space on my device. And it's actually my Kindle. It's not this that I read off of, but it's my little Kindle. But anyway, so I don't have those bookshelves that you see in some people's BookTube videos. You know, I don't have massive shelves filled with books that I haven't gotten to yet. I can see that being intimidating. I can see coming into a room and seeing all that and going, oh my gosh, I have to read that. So, you know, maybe that's why it's a little bit different for me, and I'm okay with it. So, sorry, I just need to look at my notes here. But yeah, it's not, oh yeah, that's what I was going to say, sorry. Glad I wrote things down. The other thing is, on my want to read shelf, those are not just books that I own. It used to be. When I first got on Goodreads for the first few years, I was very strict. If I owned that book either as an ebook, an audiobook, or a print book, it went on that shelf. If I didn't own a copy, it didn't go on that shelf. But then I started to realize I was seeing a lot of books that I wanted to read. But I thought, well, where am I going to make a list somewhere, or what should I do? And I just decided, forget it. I'm just going to start adding them all to my want to read. That's what that shelf is. These are books that I want to read. I don't necessarily have to own them. I just want to read them. Going back in the day, back when I was in high school, I used to walk around in my purse with a little notepad about that big, you know, like one that you would flip over the top. And I always had a pen or a pencil on me. And if I was in like the store, if I was in the bookstore or the grocery store, and you know, they have books at the grocery store or at the library, and I saw a book that I wanted to read, I would open that notebook and I would write that book down. And then I would put it back in my purse. That's essentially my want to read list. That's what that was. Well before Goodreads, well before BookTube, well before I started reading book blogs, I was keeping a want to read list in my purse written down. And if I got to a point where, hey, I want to get a book, or I'm looking for a book to read, I would open that list and go, oh, that one did sound good. And I'd check it out from my library, or I would see if I could buy a copy somewhere or something like that. TBR, that term TBR, outside, in my opinion, outside of BookTube and book blogs, the average population doesn't know necessarily what that means. I mentioned it to my mom. We were talking about something. And I said, oh yeah, I added that to my TBR. And she gave me a look and she's like, what's that? And I'm like, well, you're to be read. And she goes, oh, so books that you want to read. And I'm like, yes, that's essentially what it is. And, you know, I think this is a term that was kind of developed within the bookish community online to, you know, it's an acronym essentially. And, sorry, Goran's just complaining to Garrett. Are you agreeing or disagreeing, Mr. Gordon? You know, and I think that we need to let that go. You know, if you want to own 1,500 books and you are okay with not having read them, that's cool. You know, like I said, on my want to read pile, on my want to read list on Goodreads, I have 2,000 books. 80% of those books I own copies of, mostly as digital editions. So it's okay. I'm not looking at a shelf full of books that I'm feeling intimidated by. The other thing I want to talk about, oh yeah, I said I used to take like the notebook. I now use my phone camera. Do you guys do this? I go to Walmart and I'll be standing at Walmart and I always look at the books every time I go to Walmart, even though I don't buy any because I don't really buy physical books. But I go into Walmart and I take I'm like, ooh, and I take a picture of the cover of it, and then when I get home, I add it to my want to read shelf on Goodreads. So yeah, the other thing I want to talk about really quickly, so this video is a little bit all over the place, I apologize, but my main point is that, you know, whatever you're comfortable with, if you want your TBR to be at 0 books, good for you. If you are completely okay with having 50,000 books on your want to read list on Goodreads, good for you. I can see myself absolutely getting to that point. I am in no way intimidated by my TBR. All it tells me is that I have got tons and tons and tons of books to choose from. I am never going to be sitting there going, geez, what should I read next? That's never going to happen to me. I can go onto that list, I can sort through it, I can look through it, I can pick something, and I can go and enjoy. And that is awesome, and that's what I love about having a huge TBR. Now, that being said, I was going to talk briefly about unhauling books. That is something I did actually about 2 years ago. Not with physical, well, I did do it about, what, 3 years ago when we first moved into this apartment. I probably owned well over 1,000 physical books, all mass market paperbacks, because that's what I enjoy reading. They were mostly Harlequins and, you know, other contemporary romance and stuff like that. We didn't have the room for them, and I let them go. And I was perfectly okay with that. It does not bother me in the least. I did not need to keep those books for any reason at all. So essentially I unhauled them, even though none of them, I think I was just getting on Goodreads at the time. Then about a year or so ago, I did something very similar with my Kindle. I went through all the books that I had on my Kindle that I grabbed for free. You know, like when you first get your Kindle and you first start getting into ebooks, it's like, oh my gosh, look at all these free books. I want them all. And you add them all to cart, and then they end up sitting on your device. I finally decided that there was a lot of them on there that I was never going to read. So I went and literally deleted them. Like, it doesn't bother me in the least. If I ever want to read them for some reason, I can pick them up for a very, very cheap amount. So it was not that big a deal to me. And I felt better because they were off and it was cleared off. So you know what? Unhauling, I get it. You know, you first get into BookTube and you just start buying all the things that everybody's talking about. And then you realize down the line, okay, maybe I really don't want to read this. Did I buy it just to kind of fit in with everybody else? And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. You know, we all kind of want to have something to talk to other people about and to be able to identify with other people about. But, you know, maybe that's what it is. The problem is that, you know, if you're going out and buying $30 hardcovers that you're never actually going to read just to sit on your shelf, or, you know, eventually I might get to it. That's why I love the ebooks, that most of the time the ebooks are relatively inexpensive. Or you can borrow them from your library, you know, use your library. I think that's great too. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts on TBRs and stuff. I do apologize again for it being a little bit all over the place. But there's one other thing that I want to talk about, because this video from Christy prompted me to think about my own TBR, of course, a bit more. And I was kind of looking at on Goodreads, and I sorted it by date added. So I went back to some of the oldest books that I added back in there, which was like in 2015 or 2016 when I got on Goodreads. And I realized a lot of these I haven't gotten to yet, but they're still sitting there. Sorry for shaking the camera. So what I've decided to do is a personal challenge to myself in 2019. I'm actually going to start this in 2018. I'll talk about it when I do my my November TBR in a few weeks. But for now, my personal challenge for 2019, and if you guys want to join me, please do, is my challenge to myself is next year I am only reading books that are on my TBR on Goodreads. I am doing my best to clear those TBR books off. there's a few caveats to this, if you will. So one, if it's part of a series and I don't have it listed on my want to read, but it's part of a series that I'm currently reading, I will allow it because it's part of a series. If it's a NetGalley book, I will allow it. And the other thing is too, let's be honest, I'm going to be adding books to that TBR or to that want to read list throughout the year. If no matter when the book gets added to it, within reason, like I can't say, I really want to read that book. Want to read and then go, oh, look, it's on my want to read list. No, I'm only hurting myself if I do that. But if I buy a book in January and I stick it on my want to read list and then come, you know, August and I want to read it, it's on that list. But I am going to try and start with some of the oldest stuff and work my way through. So one of the things, not only using those books for my monthly challenges, because I will be doing, in 2019, I am still going to be doing the Romance Readers Reading Challenge, monthly reading challenge, because I love it. This will be my 3rd year in a row in 2019. It's my favorite challenge. I will do it every month. The challenge I have decided, so for that challenge, for those books, I will be doing my very, very best to only pick books that are on my TBR, on my want to read list. The challenge that I'm not going to do in 2019 is going to be the Want to Read challenge with the Million More Pages group. I've really enjoyed doing it this year. It's been a lot of fun, but I've noticed that I've had to go outside my TBR or my Want to Read list a lot to find books to stick on there. So my plan is that I'm not going to do that one next year, but what I'm going to do is that's going to open up some books on my TBR, like open up some spots for my monthly TBR. And what my plan is actually is to literally start at the very beginning of my want to read list of the oldest books that I put there and pick the next 2 every month and read them. That's just that, as simple as that. I'm starting at the beginning and I'm picking books and reading them. Now, like I said, I'm starting this in November. So I will be picking the first 2 books to read in November. Now, saying that, I will actually be skipping the first book because it's a Christmas book. And I thought, December's the next month. So I'll be reading that one in December. But I'll be picking books 2 and 3. But anyway, I'll get more into that when I do my my TBR in August. Oh my gosh, in November. But anyway, guys, please do let me know your thoughts on your want to read list or on your TBR list. Are you okay having a huge, massive list? Or do you like, you know, just a small contained amount of books to read? Please do let me know in the comments. Let's start a nice discussion on this one. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye, everybody.